Now that the Celtics have officially been eliminated, it feels like a good time to talk about what the future looks like for them, so let's do that. Before I continue on with this video, if you are new here and you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to this channel for at least weekly NBA playoff content that's really high quality over here, and then go over to my second channel where I'm doing post-game recaps to try and cover all the bases. Lower quality stuff over there, but it's more frequent, and I'm trying to hit 100K over there, so your subscription would be much appreciated. Also drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second and makes a massive difference in how this video performs in the YouTube algorithm. Now, unfortunately, for the sake of this video just being super interesting, the way that the Celtics are going to improve is not going to be through some big bombastic move. If that was something that I thought they would do or should do, believe me, it would be in the thumbnail. It would be some star player photoshopped in the Celtics jersey. It equals more clicks, but I just don't see that happening, nor do I think they should make it happen. The Celtics, as they are currently constructed, do not have a ton of wiggle room, especially money-wise. Really, they can only make some small moves here or there, and more importantly, I just don't believe that a large-scale move is in the cards or necessary here. Just about everything you need for a championship formula already exists on this Celtics roster. You have your superstar in Tatum, your great supporting star in Jaylen Brown, a defensive-minded, love him on your team, hate playing against him player in Marcus Smart, a great defensive big man, a veteran presence, a really decent bench unit, and a really good head coach. At the level the Celtics are at, you don't need some large move because they're already pretty close. And from there, like with my ex-girlfriend, the difference maker and whether or not it works is just a matter of a few inches. That's a joke. I haven't had a girlfriend in my adult life. I decided to be a fucking YouTuber and never leave my goddamn house. So first thing on the agenda for the Celtics, and it's frankly kind of boring, is internal improvement. Now this is one of the hardest things to speculate on and project going forward because a lot of these things come down to a player's and team's ability to improve and their willingness to do so. That said, here's what every player on this team worth a damn should work on this offseason. Tatum's actually on-floor game is becoming one of the most complete in basketball, so really I think he needs to focus more on the mental side of the game, especially leadership and just embracing the fact that he is this team's leader. Tatum kind of has a tendency to fall out of games, and his voice as a leader subsequently goes with it. The Celtics generally tend to follow his lead, as most teams do with their best player, and when Tatum has a bad game, he is not exactly hiding it, and the body language he displays spreads throughout the entire team, and it really just seems like a loss is a foregone conclusion. Now, I realize that's something that's complicated to work on. Hell, I don't even know where you start with something like that, but I also know it's something that we have seen players develop before, so however you do it. Jaylen Brown needs to work on his decision making. His shot selection can often be questionable, and his passing can be very questionable. Most of the players on this Celtics team are very capable of making the extra pass, so it really makes it stand out when one player can't, and that player is often Jaylen Brown. Marcus Smart needs like a Riddiman subscription or something. Like, please chill the fuck out. The shot selection, the hero ball, the selective and weird decision making. Smart can be a great passer one possession and a dumbfounding one on the next. It would genuinely make a world of difference for the Celtics if Smart just shot the ball 3 or 4 less times a game and he thought out his decisions just a little bit more before he made them. Robert Williams has actually shown some flashes of being a capable mid-range shooter, so if he could come into the league next year with somewhat of a jump shot, like maybe he can hit an open corner 3 and he has a decent mid-range jumper, that would be really cool. The rest of his game is pretty much solidly rounded out, so I can't really ask him to do that much else. He's a great defender, like borderline defensive player of the year candidate, a really good rebounder, a really good finisher, and he has some underrated passing chops, which honestly I think the Celtics should utilize more. Really, all he doesn't do, at least at an average level, is shoot the ball. I don't expect Al Horford to improve at this stage of his career, not to mention that he balled his ass out in the Bucks series, so the last thing I'm going to do is be critical of his game. Derek White, Man, if you don't develop a halfway consistent jump shot, I am so tired of the can he shoot or can't he game with him. It's been going on for his entire career, and in the playoffs for Boston this year, the answer was a resounding no. Grant Williams is perfect, and I will hear no slander, and really outside of that, those are the only guys who I think should be in the playoff rotation for the Celtics again going into next year, so I'm just gonna stop my internal improvement speech there. As for some stuff Ime Udoka can improve with and his game plan, well, the offense has finally stopped being so bare bones, which I appreciate. However, I think consistency has been the issue with this team still, even through the changes. Really, my main gripe is that the Celtics team seems to go away from their offensive sets as the game tightens up, especially really late in games. If you watch the fourth quarter of Game 5, where the Celtics really seemed like they had it until they didn't, the offensive sets that were working in the first three quarters slowly turned into Tatum isolations and other forms of just very basic and easy to predict offense that the best defensive team in the playoffs had no issue taking apart. But I mentioned the idea of a potential move or two that this team could make, and really there is only one that stands out at the top of my mind, and it involves the $17.1 million trade exception that the Celtics got from the Evan Fournier sign-and trade that they can use this offseason to add a player making that salary or less. And I think they should use this trade exception to acquire someone to come off of the bench who is going to be your offensive spark plug type of guy. And ideally one who is primarily a three-point shooter. Because it's kind of something we have talked about forever now, but the Celtics have just entirely been lacking in a bona fide three-point shooter. Even if they're not a terrible three-point shooting team as a whole, it'd be nice to have a guy who really specializes in that. Here are a few names. First and foremost is Duncan Robinson, then there is Malik Beasley of the Timberwolves, Kevin Huerter of the Hawks, Malik Monk in a sign-and-trade, and Doug McDermott from the Spurs. Those are just the guys who are primarily shooters. For some other just offensive six men in general who aren't necessarily strictly that, Christian Wood from the Rockets, Will Barton from the Nuggets, and Marcus Morris from the Clippers. Now, the validity and likelihood of any of those potential names ending up on this team is entirely a case-by-case basis, and the way in which you would actually have to alter the roster around one of those names is also a case-by-case basis. Like, Christian Wood would mean less minutes for pretty much all of your big men to make room for him to thrive, but Malik Beasley is only taking minutes away from, like, Peyton Pritchard, so, like, who really cares? Other than like Peyton and his mom. Either way, with this trade exception, the Celtics have room to really round out the depth of this roster and make it even better than it already was. And hopefully that, along with some internal improvement, can be enough for this Celtics team to be right back there next year and hopefully even better than they already are. There's also some smaller signings you can make, like a Nicholas Batum, Gary Harris, Serge Ibaka, JaMychal Green, Jeff Green, Bryn Forbes, Dwight Howard, Ben McLemore, Tony Snell, and so on. Perhaps a decent playoff rotation player is among that group, and it can help round out your rotation in depth. Anyways, really to me, this is the first year where the Tatum-led Boston Celtics genuinely felt like a real threat to win the title and not just a team that did make the Eastern Conference Finals, but really who cares? So there's really nothing to be bummed about here. You're on year one. This isn't a team that has been good year after year, but just continued to fail to reach the finish line. No, there's plenty of years to go in the future, and I would be surprised if a team with as talented of a core as this did not get there eventually. Anyways, shout out to Rudy for editing this video, but that is the end of this video. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more NBA content like this, and cue the outro music.